Hey everyone, thank you for coming to my video today. We're going to walk through a tutorial on a simple profit and loss statement. This is built off of one of my most popular, just basic profit and loss templates that I have on my listing. However, the one we're going to look at today is a full featured template. So in other words, not only is it the profit and loss, but it's going to have a dashboard to show summary information, monthly income statements. It's going to have a budget that you can use, revenue tracking by your channels. If you're using Etsy or Shopify or Amazon or all of those, you can track them in one spot. It's going to have the payroll detail. So if you have some employees or people that you're treating like employees that you need to track compensation by paycheck. We have that. It has the bank rec feature, which is on some of my other templates if you've seen some of my other videos, and then also a customer and a vendor payer tracker. So in other words, as people pay you or you pay them, it'll track their payments throughout that. And so we'll go ahead and go in. The first thing I will note is while I am doing the full feature walkthrough here, this template is available in several different iterations. So you can see all the different tabs here that go with this specific template. And if there's some things that you don't want, like you want the dashboard with the income statement and the register, and that's it, you can have that. If you want, the channel tracker and the payroll, but you don't need the bank rec or the customer payer tracker, you can buy those, and each one varies in price based off of um, how many different features you have. With the one with all the features being the biggest one or the most expensive one, and then each one sort of going down from there. But we'll go ahead. We'll go through all the different features here. The first page is a setup page, so this is where you enter your company name at the top and you set what month end you want all these reports to run to. Other than the bank rec, you do that one on its own page, and you also can here set your fiscal year. And so if you're running a company that has a fiscal year end that's not 12/31/2022, you can just go in here and you can type in here the 6/20/2022. And if you go over here, you'll see now these year to dates and everything else will roll based off of a year end that uh, ends on 6/30/2022, which is a nice feature of this. This is also the place where you can come in, add income and expense accounts, add employees. If you have the payroll tracker, if you don't have the payroll tracker, this won't be there. And also, if you have the revenue stream tracker, you can customize and change them here. And if you need to change any of these, you can do it right here. All you have to do is type in here, change it, and it will change in all the different areas. So just to give you an example, if I change this to test one, we'll go over here to the income statement. You see test one's changed. We go to the monthly, it's changed over here. In the budget, it's even changed. And also in the register where you're going to enter transactions, you actually see that if we find a deposit with income, you actually see that now, even in the drop down that we have here. Let me move this over a little bit. You can even see that it's changed in there. Now let me just zoom out a little bit because it does seem like on the screen it's a little hard to see everything. Perfect. Okay. And so, if you need to customize them, you can change here. We'll come back in a little bit to show how to add different people. For now, let me just undo. Actually, let me do all of that. There we go. So that's the first page. You also have instructions here, and also this video tutorial will be here, which some of you may have actually used to click to see this. And so you have all the different instructions, and there are some instructions that are actually over in each of the templates as well. So that's the setup and instructions. We have a dashboard. Now this is kind of an interactive dashboard. And what I mean by that is the first part here is a rolling last 12 months. And I think that's the best metric to kind of compare just to see how the last 12 months have been trending for you. We also have a interactive revenue and expense breakdowns. In other words, if you want to see the difference in your results from current year and prior year for the last 12 months, you can see it right here. And you can change that, and you can see that the charts change. And you can see over here the same for this one. Oop, clicking in the wrong area. And you can see this changes as well. Again, all of these drop downs are dynamic. So if you change the names over here, they will change over here as well. The next tab is one of the basic, most critical ones. This tab right here is on every one of the templates. It's one of the primary ones. This is the income statement, and with it, like I said, these are all customizable. You customize them on setup instructions. They will come over here. We're showing actual and budget for each one of these for the year, for the current month end, and for the year to date. Now, if you purchase the one without the budget, all you will have is just the actual results for the month end and year to date. You won't have this budget comparison if you purchase one without the budget. This next tab right here, this is the register. So this is what really every other tab drives off of. This is where you're entering your transactions. If you want to, let's hide that bank budget because we generally don't input into it. Generally speaking, you just enter transactions sort of like as a check register. Deposits here are income, checks are expenses, and you can fill out these columns as you go. So if this is the full feature, it has lots of extra columns. You have a place for a check number. You have a place to enter what type of what bank account it is. This helps you on the bank rec, which we'll feature later. Also for the bank rec portion, if that check or deposit has cleared your bank, who your customer or vendor is. That's helpful for the customer payer tracker, what revenue channel that it's with, and again, we'll go to that tab later. Your employee, which is related to the payroll portion, the account, and the amount of that. And then if you have one of the tabs or one of the templates that has the payroll feature, you'll have this whole section over here that says paycheck data. And all you're doing is you're entering for those checks that are checks for employees. You're entering your check data. You're entering the check data. So for the income, you're earning all the different income right here. You're entering the taxes here that you withheld for that employee, and then if there's any deductions as well, you're putting them right there. If for some reason you need more than 4 of each group, just reach out to me privately. I'll help you add those. It's kind of the one thing that's a little tough to add, but if you reach out to me privately, I'll be happy to add them for you if you need additional items. And then over here, this calculates on the net pay. Again, all of this data in columns M all the way through column I feed into the payroll tab, which we'll come to later. If we keep going across, this next tab is a monthly income statement. The first one here showing on your year to date, and just to show you the dynamic features of it, if I change this to 630 and go back over here to the monthly tab, you can see here now I actually end in the June 2022. So it does kind of know that difference. This first area here is for the year to date period. And then down here, actually notice it starts at February 22nd because that's the date of this current month that we're in. This is a rolling 12 monthly. So if you really want to see the detail of your entire set of financial statements across the month, you can just go right here and see all of this in the last 12 months, or you can see the year to date right here as it goes across. Now I'm going to go ahead before I forget and just reset this to 12/31/2022. The budget is pretty simple. This is where if you are a person who needs to keep track of a budget for your income or your expenses or both, you enter that data here. Whatever you enter here goes and feeds into this budget report on the profit and loss. Again, if you don't buy the budget portion of it, this tab won't be there, nor will these columns on the profit and loss. Keep moving across here. This is the channel tracker, revenue channel tracker. And so this is really for people who have a company. Let's expand these columns. There we go. This is for someone who has, a small business or side hustle, but your revenue streams or your revenue channels or the places where you make money, for lack of a better term. This is where you can track all those different places. So, for this example, I have Etsy, Shopify, eBay, Amazon, and then actually the system calculates all the other places that are not within there. Again, all of this is feeding off of the register. And so, as you enter things into this register that we were at previously, it will automatically calculate this information. If we keep moving across the payroll data, this is the summary report showing all the payroll data for the employees that you have. You can actually see here some of the year-to-date information. Again, this feeds off of that register that we showed you a little bit earlier. This, like I said, feeds off of what your month end is and calculates the year-to-date as you go around as well. The next one, this is one of my favorite tabs. Also, the one that in building it took the longest time to build. This is a bank reconciliation feature. So if you're a person who has to reconcile your bank statement at the end of every month, you can use this to do it. What it does is you end up at the top here, you put your bank statement. This will calculate your outstanding checks and deposits and help you set your reconciled balance. And it'll track it to the general ledger and it'll tell you if you have a difference that you still need to reconcile. This is preset for 3 accounts. And you can see here you actually have 3 different reconciliations you can do here. This is the one place where you can change the account here. So if I want to change this, this will dynamically change here, and it'll dynamically change what checks are available as outstanding down here. And we'll come back to this one as we enter the register in a little bit. And then our final tab is one of my favorite ones. This is my customer payer tracker. Let me scroll all the way to the top. And what this does is it takes all of the information you put in for customer and vendor, calculates, what your current month, current year to date, and your prior year to date receipts from the customers or your vendors are in one quick report. And I really like this for really seeing who's buying from you, who's making you money, and who is taking your money, for lack of a better term. And so I find this one to be a pretty helpful one as well. And so that's all the different tabs. That's the quick summary. Now, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go to a blank version of this. We're just going to walk through some of the different things that you can do. So the first thing that we're going to show you is we're going to enter a transaction, and I want to show you how this feeds throughout all these tabs as we enter it. So we'll do a very full-fledged composite transaction. Make sure it kind of trying to hit all the different buckets that we're talking about here with the different drop downs. And then I'll show you kind of it feeding into those. We're then going to show some of the ways that you can modify this report by changing your income or expense accounts. Also showing you how to add or remove accounts, change employees, add revenue streams. And so we're going to go through all of those different steps so that you can see every one of them as we go. So we'll go ahead and we'll enter our first transaction into the register. This is a month end currently in a year to date of 2/28. So we are going to go in here and enter this at 2/28/2022. We're going to make this a deposit. And then let me go ahead and zoom out here so you can see everything. There we go. We're going to enter a check of 1111. We're going to enter a bank of checking account 1. We're not going to clear it currently. Now notice, because there's no entries, there's actually nothing other than this 0 to enter here. But we're going to put our first customer in. We're just going to call him John Doe. Now one thing I would like to show you now that's kind of neat is he is now an option on future drop downs now that you've entered him. And before we go any further, I'll show you at the top here that he is actually showing up here in row 14, which is a nice feature. So going back there, channel, we'll say this is for Etsy. We're not going to do this as an employee because obviously this is the deposit. So we're going to leave this blank for now. We'll do another one here in a minute for them. We're going to say that the account is merchandise income, and we're going to say that the amount is $500. And that is kind of all the entries you need. Like I said, we'll come back here for the employee, but I do want to show you now. If we go over here, you can see that $500 is there. I still have a budget input, so the budget data is in there. You can see for the year to date, we also have $500. If we go to the dashboard, you can see here that the $500 shows up. And just to show you the dynamic portion of that, you can see here that it actually goes away if you change that drop down. If we go to the monthly, you can see them there on that one. And over here, oh, I just realized you can't see over there. Let me scroll over. See over there on the February 2022. Don't have to see the budget. That's just the input. And you can see here in February, you can see that you do have a transaction for Etsy. Now there's no expenses, which is why nothing's showing up there. But in the income, you can see we now have a transaction that shows for Etsy. This is currently blank. As I said, we will come back to that because can't really do a payroll for a deposit. And on the bank rec, you can see now this shows up there. And you can see we now have an outstanding deposit. Let's go ahead and delete that. And then finally, you can see that they show up on the customer payer tracker. And so you can see that one transaction feeds into all of those different feeds, which is a really nice feature. Oh, let me delete all that data. There we go. And so that's entering a deposit. Now, one thing I'll go ahead and do is let's go ahead and do a second transaction. So we'll do a 2/28/2022. This one's going to be an expense. So we're going to do check. We're going to do 8,000. We'll say this is for checking account 2. We will not clear it. We'll come back to how to clear them in a minute. I'm not going to put a customer or vendor in because this is an employee. I'm not going to put a channel in, unless this is an expense for an employee working specifically one of your channels. I would suggest leaving this blank. Expenses for channels, I generally consider that things like Etsy fees, Amazon fees, things like that they take out of your account. But we will go ahead and put our employee in, and we'll go ahead and just grab employee 1. We'll call this wages, and we'll put this in for $1,000. Now, from this point, to get the payroll report to work, you now have to scroll over here, and we have to start entering the payroll check data. And so we'll start entering this. And again, the first area of income, that's what you paid them, and then you deduct for the taxes. So the goal here is to have a net pay equal to this amount. And so what I want to do is just say, we'll say wages of $1,500. I'll give a $10 commission, $5 tip. We're going to say that the taxes, we pay $200, have $100 there, $50 there, and I'm kind of watching over to the side to make sure I get this math to work right. $65 there, and let's just say we add $100 insurance. We'll leave retirement and the other ones that we have there just kind of out of this. Okay, and now you can see that net pays there. Now, just to show you that transaction went through, you can see wages of $1,000 there. And they are obviously not on the customer payer tracker at this point because we did not put their name in the vendor. But if we go over here to the payroll detail, you'll see now we have employee 1 has data, and they also have data in the year-to-date information as well. Let me just scroll over. If I've cut off on this a little bit, I do apologize. The screen that I use to display, I can see more on my screen than the display screen can. So I do apologize if I cut a little bit off. I'm trying to remember to scroll over so you can see it and to zoom out. So that is how you enter a payroll transaction. Now, the next thing I would like to show you is dealing with the bank rec. If you go over to the bank rec, you can see that we do have, in fact, a transaction. That one's not working. Why is that one not working? Oh, because the date's wrong. So if we change this to 2/28/2022, we have a check here. Now, to clear a deposit or a check, all you have to do is go back to the register that we were at previously. And in this drop down, if you click yes, we'll go back. And now you can see actually that is now no longer there because we cleared that. And so now you can see the other one's still outstanding. And just to show you how that goes away, if I clear this, remove that, yes, go back here, it shows back up. And so if you're using the bank rec feature, as you mark these things clear, they go off of your sheet for an outstanding check. So it does some of the automation for you if you're someone who needs a bank rec. It needs to track that on a month-to-month basis. And I do know a lot of people have reached out saying that's a nice tool to have, which is why I've added that feature to this. That is really it for the various inputs that go into here. Again, like I said, the register, as long as you're filling in these various columns, and for the payroll side, as long as you're filling in the areas over here, this thing automates pretty much everything for you. It's just critical to make sure you put the data in correct. One thing I am going to real quickly, because um, I do have a version of this that is a Google Sheets, and that's what I'm trying to show here. I did want to show this because what we have is the exact same version, but there is one significantly different part, and I try and do this on every one of these. Now, this is the one with value onlys, but I want to explain part of the problem, or one of the things that if you buy the Google Sheets, you just need to know. As you enter things, sometimes you're going to find this little red triangle on the account that says invalid, and if you click on there, the thing that you may have selected may not be there as well. And I want to explain what that is. What that is in Google Sheets doesn't really do um, the drop downs, the dynamic drop downs, very well. And so the way that this formula writes in here to get the correct drop down is when you're entering a transaction. And let's get down to the very bottom here. This is the values only ones, and I forgot how many transactions are in here. There we go. The way the formula works is it looks at the last entry in column B, and it says the formula for what shows up in the drop down here for all of your entries, for all the entries in the past and the one you're currently on. It says what's the last transaction, or what's the last entry in column B, and that determines what shows up in the drop down. So if your last entry here is a deposit, if you go over here, it's having to calculate that real quick. Let's try that. Now you can see that you have incomes. If you change this to a check, it's a little slow today, so it's calculating. I can see on the right it's calculating. If you look here, now it's a check. But the thing is it doesn't just change it for here, it changes it for every one of these transactions, which is why sometimes you end up with this little warning that says, hey, this is not valid. That's perfectly okay. It's just a weird thing with Google Sheets in particular. Everything will still calculate just fine. It's just kind of one of those oddities. Also, if you have to change something, like for example, you need to change one of these accounts in the deposits, but your last entry is a check. If you need to go back up here and change this, just go down to the very last entry you have, go to the next row you have, go down here, change this to deposit, and then this, give it a moment. It's having to think really hard today. Go up here, and now this drop down is changed. That's just one of those oddities. I wish I could find a way around it. I have worked countless hours to find a way to work around that in the Google Sheets, but unfortunately, I'm still stuck there. Now, to be clear, this is a Google Sheets issue only. If you are working in the Excel version, you do not have this problem. Your Excel will work fine. It knows how to do this. But if you have a Google Sheet, that's just one of those little things that's odd. I get a lot of comments about it, a lot of questions about it. And so I like to go through the video and explain that as well. So now with that being said, I am going to run back to our entries here. Go back to our Excel version. Now, the last thing that I want to cover is how to add or remove accounts. So to add or remove accounts, to remove account, and I'm going to undo this after I do it. Adding accounts and removing accounts for income and expenses is effectively the same thing. You're just doing it to different sections in the book. So if I want to delete that, I just delete it. And then I go over to here. And one thing I would suggest is go ahead and delete this row. There we go. And then you want to also go over to your monthly income statement. You want to delete that row. You want to go up to the next section, delete the row there as well. You want to delete this extra row here as well because now your budget has one less account. And I think that is all the places you got to change it. There's a lot of places you got to change it, but that's because there's so many different interactions there. Again, if you don't have all those tabs, some of those you may not have to make that change on because you may not have that tab. Just to show you though, if we go here enter a deposit, I will show you here. Now that does not show up as well. So you can see that. So now let's say you need an add account. We just, took an account out. Let's go ahead and add it back. So if we go here and say rent income, and again, if you had more, you can put down here, but you go ahead and enter one. You can go over to the income statement. You want to go ahead and insert a row because you want to leave kind of a 1 row gap. And then what you want to do is you want to grab this entire row here because there's calculations and you can probably see the formulas up in here. You want to go ahead and left click, highlight all these. You want to get that little plus sign right there. You want to left click and just drag that down. And if you were doing this for an expense account, you do the exact same thing. You would just do it down here in the expense section, but the one we added was a revenue one. You then want to go to that monthly income statement and you want to do the same thing. You want to right click here. You want to hit insert, and then you want to just grab all of those over there. Let me scroll over so you can see. You want to do that same drag and drop there. And you also want to go down to the other schedule here. You got to remember to get them all. Go ahead and hit insert. And you want to highlight that whole section, get that little plus sign. Let me scroll over in case you can't see it. And you want to drag that down there. And that kind of updates that information. Just to show you the register, you don't have to do anything with it. It's dynamic. It actually grabs it without you having to do anything there. So you can see that account's back in there. The budget, you do want to do the same thing. You want to insert one more row. Now, the one thing you may want to do here is you may want to go ahead and just highlight this. And then I don't think you can maybe see this on here. You want to grab this format painter and you just want to get this whole highlight and you just want to left click in that first row there. And the only reason for that is because that allows you that part of it. And let's see that this is it worked. It brought back over that once you enter it. And that's all the areas that you need to add it there. So that's how you delete and add an expense account. An employee is the same way. If you need to add another one there, let's just put employee 21. There we go. And if we go over here to payroll detail, you can see it already inputs, but you need to insert one more row. So go ahead and insert that one more row there. And you want to do that same. Let's scroll all the way across so you can see it. Oh, excuse me. You want to get all of those calculated formulas that you have. And then you want to find that plus sign, drag it down. Same down here. You want to go ahead and hit insert here. And then again, you want to just left click everything and get that up. You want to highlight all those areas. And you want to do that same thing. You want to drag that down. And now that'll auto calculate. And just to show you again, if you go to the employee one here, now you have employee 21. Last section is this revenue stream. Let's say you need and by the way, deleting's the same way. If you don't need one, you just remove it, and then you can go over here to payroll detail, and you don't need that row anymore. You can keep that row if you want to, but I would just generally get rid of it. The last section, let's go back here. Let's say you need a revenue stream, need to add one. Let's just say direct sales. We'll go over here to the channel tracker, and you just need to do the same exact thing here. You just want to insert, then you want to grab this and bring that down on that left click, and the same here as well. Left click, bring that down. Now you may want to do just check to make sure that make sure this formula still sums correctly. Not necessarily necessary, but it might be good for you to just double check that. We got to do it down here as well. So insert, and then you just want to grab this whole section here, drag that down, and now that's been updated. And then again, if you want to delete them, same process, go over here. Let's delete them. Actually, I'm sorry. Let me just do one more thing. Let's leave that direct cell here. Again, you don't have to do anything on the register. On the register, you can see it already has the direct sales. So let's go ahead and just delete it here if you're deleting it. And then you just go back in here, right click delete. And actually see how this is referenced. You definitely want to delete that. And you want to delete that. And so it's like it never existed. So you can see how many these are all designed to add as many as you can go down there. So you have a ton of different accounts that you can add or revenue streams at it. The last thing I was going to note is on the payroll detail, if you don't like these payroll details right here, you can change them right here and it will go ahead and change them over on the register. So if you like just for example, let's say you like the word salary, go over here to the register. Now you can see it actually says salary. So just one of those kind of extra little features. If you want to change it on the upper month end section here, and it'll change it throughout the report as well. And I believe that is all the different features of this, very large template. Again, like I said, if this is too much stuff and you don't need all of these, each one of these is sort of broken down. So I sell it kind of a la carte in the sense that, if you need, again, the dashboard, the income statement, the register, but you don't want the other ones, you can just have that part. If you want the tram tracker and the payroll detail, but you don't need the budget, we have a version for that. If you want the customer payer tracker and the bank rec, but you don't want the dashboard, we have versions of that as well. So kind of all the different iterations are available. And what I'll do is I'll put a link in the YouTube description that sends just a link to this full section of profit and loss statements so that you can see all the different ones and go through there. And, if for some reason you're struggling to find the one you want, you can always reach out to me directly, private message me on Etsy, or you can also email me at my email address on here and say, Andrew, loved your templates, or at least I hope you love the templates. Here's what I want. I want this one and this one and this one, and I don't need these features. Which one of the listings is it? And I want it for Excel or Google Sheets. Give me that information. Send that to me a direct message. I try to respond about as fast as possible. I do have the Etsy chat on my phone, so I do see your messages go through sometimes when I'm at work. Obviously, I can't sometimes reply quickly, but I do reply within 24 hours no matter what. That is one of my guarantees, is to make sure I respond back unless I'm, dying on a deathbed or on vacation, which I don't think it'll let you message me anyways at that point. But if you don't know which one you want and you need help, private message me. I'd be happy to help make sure that you get the right one for your needs. And one of the things that I try and do is if you end up with the wrong one, I try and make it right and make sure you get the one that you want in the end. So thank you again for sticking through this entire longer than normal tutorial. There was a lot of things in here and I wanted to make sure we covered them all. If you found this video helpful, please think about liking the video. Please think about subscribing. Not only are we showing tutorials for this and other templates on Etsy, I'm also starting to do tips and tricks on some of the functions that I use all throughout this template and the other templates on Etsy, and to see how those different functions work so you can build your own templates. Subscribe to the YouTube page and I'll keep adding those as well as other tutorials for all the different things that we sell on Etsy. If you've not been to my shop before, think about going to the shop, checking out, including this template. We have lots of other ones. We have a rental income statement with many of the same features as this one. We have a multi-building profit and loss statement. We have personal financial tools, personal budgets. We have dynamic calendars. So if you just want to have one calendar that you can change every year and all the dates kind of correct themselves into the correct days, we have quite literally almost any template you can think of. And so think about checking us out, going there and seeing all the different features that we have. Thank you for going through this whole video with me, and we'll hope to see you again soon. Thank you.